Ferrari just exposed Mercedes, and now the FIA might have no choice but to ban their engine. Just days before testing in Bahrain, new evidence shows the Mercedes power unit might be gaining up to 15 extra horsepower. By bending a rule the FIA didn't even see coming, it passed inspection. It was approved. But what happens on track is very different from what they tested in the lab. And now, with the whole grid watching, the FIA is under pressure to shut it down before the first lap is even run. Because if this engine is allowed to race, the entire championship could be over before it even begins. Subscribe now, because the ban might drop any minute. It all started with a number, buried deep inside a batch of shared simulation data. Something tiny, almost invisible. But Ferrari caught it, because what they saw did not match the laws of physics. Torque curves spiking too early, acceleration too clean, thermal readings that didn't add up. Mercedes wasn't just fast, they were suspiciously fast. And Ferrari knows what that usually means. They ran their own simulations, tried to recreate the conditions, tried to find missing variable. And that's when it happened. The numbers shifted, not at the start of a lap, not in Sector 1, but right after the engine hit race-level heat. That was the trigger, because suddenly the performance jumped. Power delivery increased, fuel efficiency stabilized, and the engine's behavior completely changed. This wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a software issue. Ferrari had seen this once before, back in 2019, the year they were accused of exploiting a fuel flow loophole. They remember what it looks like when a team finds a technical backdoor and hides it in plain sight. And this time, they believe it's Mercedes. But here's the twist. The engine passed every FIA check. Why? Because those checks happen at ambient temperature, when the car is cold, when the engine behaves like every other engine. But on track, under real race conditions, Ferrari believes it transforms. And once it does, the rules don't matter anymore. Inside the FIA's engine regulations for 2026, there's a rule that seems harmless, almost boring. It says, the compression ratio must not exceed 16:1. All measurements are to be taken at ambient temperature. That's it. That's the line. And Mercedes saw it first. Because here's what happens at ambient temperature. Engines are cold. Materials are stiff. Metal parts are stable and easy to measure. But once the car hits the track, everything changes. Inside the combustion chamber, extreme heat begins to reshape the engine. Not drastically, not visibly, but enough. The walls of the chamber expand. Pistons elongate. Clearance tightens by just fractions of a millimeter. But in a Formula One engine, fractions are everything. Ferrari's evidence shows that Mercedes used advanced alloys and expansion modeling to design components that behave differently when exposed to race heat. When the FIA runs its tests, the compression ratio is 16:1, exactly what the rule allows. But when the engine runs at full temperature, that ratio spikes to over 18:1, and that, in simple terms, means more power, more torque, more speed, without a single illegal part. It's like having a second engine hidden inside the first. Legal on paper, lethal on track. And because the FIA doesn't test at race heat, they never saw it coming. This is why Ferrari's engineers are convinced. This isn't just a clever interpretation. It's a targeted design exploit, a deliberate manipulation of thermal behavior, built specifically to bypass regulation, without technically breaking it. And now that Ferrari has exposed it, the FIA is out of excuses. The moment Ferrari saw the numbers, they didn't leak it to the press. They didn't take it public. Not yet. They went straight to the source, the FIA. And what they delivered wasn't just a complaint. It was a technical dossier, detailed simulations, thermal maps, alloy behavior studies, comparative modeling, a full report showing how Mercedes could gain up to 15 extra horsepower without triggering a single regulation test. According to insiders, the FIA was shocked, not by the data, but by what it meant, because now they had a problem. They had already approved this engine, signed off on it, declared it legal, publicly. If Ferrari's evidence is right, the FIA didn't just miss something. They approved a weapon they didn't understand. And that's where the trap begins. Because Ferrari didn't just submit evidence. They gave the FIA a deadline. Act before Bahrain, or face a full protest. Public, loud, and backed by more than one team. Red Bull has already hinted they'll support Ferrari. Honda is privately furious. Audi preparing for its entry has raised internal concerns. Suddenly, this isn't just Ferrari versus Mercedes. It's Ferrari leading a rebellion, a coalition of teams that all want one thing: transparency. Because if the FIA stays silent, if they allow this engine to race in Bahrain, after seeing the data, then the entire paddock will know where the FIA's loyalty really lies. And that's a line Ferrari won't let them cross. Because to them, this isn't about politics anymore. It's about justice. They've been punished before. They've been silenced before. But not this time. This time, they came with proof, with support, with leverage. And if the FIA doesn't act, Ferrari will make sure the world knows the truth. They didn't expect this. When the Mercedes engine was signed off, it looked clean, legal, efficient. The compression ratio, 16:1, on the paperwork, on the bench, by the book. But the moment Ferrari's report landed, everything changed. Because that report didn't just show technical details. It exposed a flaw in the FIA's entire inspection process. A hole big enough for a championship-winning engine to slide through. The officials knew it. And now, they know they're exposed. Multiple sources confirm the FIA has held at least 2 closed-door sessions to discuss emergency options. Not just technical directives, not just a quiet clarification, but a full reevaluation of Mercedes' power unit approval. One that could lead to a last-minute reversal, a ban, a rewrite, or worse, a legal war. Because here's what's at stake. If the FIA bans the engine now, Mercedes will retaliate. They've invested years into this design, millions in development, and they got it approved under the current rules. If that gets revoked now, they'll fight it in court. And if they win, the FIA loses everything. Not just the case, but their authority. But if the FIA does nothing, if they stay silent, let the engine race, and ignore the evidence, they risk the entire season imploding. Because no one will trust the rules, no one will trust the process, and no one will believe the outcome is fair. That's the nightmare scenario. A championship decided, not by skill, but by who best exploited the FIA's blind spot. And so now, the FIA sits in silence, one hand on the rulebook, one eye on Ferrari, and both feet on a landmine they laid themselves. There are no secrets in Bahrain. Not when the track temperature hits 40 degrees. Not when every team is watching. Not when the data is live, public, and impossible to spin. Ferrari knows that, and that's why they've been quiet, waiting, tracking every rumor, every detail, every shipment to the Mercedes garage. Because when that power unit comes alive under desert heat, the truth will reveal itself. No more theory, no more simulations, just lap times, telemetry, hard numbers. And if that engine performs exactly how Ferrari's report predicted, the game is over. Because then it's not a protest, it's not speculation, it's proof. Ferrari's engineers will be watching for one thing: Sector 2, the middle of the lap, where heat saturation peaks, where cooling struggles, where thermal expansion becomes visible in performance. If Mercedes finds time there, not on soft tires, not on fuel runs, but in consistent long stint pace, then Ferrari will know, and they won't be alone. Red Bull's data teams, Audi's observers, Honda's engine analysts, they'll all be watching the same numbers. And if they all see it, the protest will come. But Bahrain is not just a test session anymore. It's a public interrogation of Mercedes, of the FIA, of the very rules that are supposed to hold this sport together. And once the clock starts, no one can hide. Ferrari has already prepared the paperwork. If the performance spike appears, they'll file before the session ends, before interviews, before the paddock clears. Because this time, they're not waiting for the FIA to ask questions. They're forcing them to give answers. The moment the ban becomes official, everything changes. Because Mercedes isn't walking into this blind. They knew the risk. They knew the loophole was sharp. And they planned for the backlash from the very beginning. What Ferrari sees as evidence, Mercedes sees as strategy. And they've built a legal firewall, strong enough to blow the whole controversy wide open. At the core of their defense is one simple point: the engine was approved, signed off, tested, cleared by the FIA themselves. If that approval is now reversed, Mercedes will claim breach of process, abuse of discretion, unfair treatment under existing regulations. In legal terms, They'll accuse the FIA of changing the rules after the game has already started. And that argument, it holds weight. Sources say Mercedes already has a full legal team briefed, contracts ready, private communications cataloged, technical sign-offs logged to the minute. If the FIA tries to walk it back now, those documents will go public. Emails, meeting transcripts, inspection logs, all designed to show that the governing body had every chance to stop this engine and chose not to. But this isn't just about legal pressure. It's about power, because Mercedes is more than just a team. They are a global manufacturer, a giant, with leverage, with influence, with allies. And if they are cornered, they won't just challenge the decision. They could challenge the entire FIA structure, from the technical commission to the approval process, to the leadership itself. And the consequences? Devastating. Delayed testing, legal injunctions, sponsors pulling back, broadcast contracts in limbo, all before the first race. So now the FIA is trapped. They can either protect the integrity of the sport and risk a legal war they might not win, or they back down, let the engine race, and gamble with the reputation of the entire championship. Either way, the damage is already done.